Welcome to Candlelight Mystery, where every flicker hides a secret. Tonight, as the candle burns low, three legendary minds meet: Miss Marple, Hercule Poirot, and a sharp Scotland Yard detective. Together, they uncover shadows, clues, and whispers of danger. Let the mystery begin. As the final candle sputtered in the silent room, a chill swept through the old manor. Three brilliant minds, Miss Marple, Hercule Poirot, and a Scotland Yard detective, stood over an impossible crime, a locked-room murder with no weapon, no fingerprints, and no way in or out. Outside, the storm raged, trapping everyone inside with a killer who was calm enough to vanish without a trace. Every suspect carried a secret, every clue pointed in a different direction, and every minute lost brought them closer to danger. One question haunted them all: who could outsmart the greatest detectives alive? Chapter 1. The fog over London looked thick as old soup. Street lamps made small golden circles in the mist. Somewhere a clock struck 8. It sounded tired and worried. Inside a quiet hotel dining room sat Hercule Poirot. He looked perfect from his neat hair to his shiny shoes. Every line of his suit was in the right place. His moustache rested above his lip like a proud little king. On the table in front of him sat a cup of hot chocolate and a small plate with one neat slice of cake. The cake had not been touched. This was already a little bit shocking. For Monsieur Poirot did not usually ignore cake. He held a letter in his small, careful hand. The paper was thick and fine. The writing on it was straight and dark. There was no name at the top, no address at the end, no sign of the writer at all. His green eyes watched the words again. To the greatest mind in crime. A matter of life and death waits in London. A puzzle that will defeat you unless you come at once. A locked room, no weapon, no way in, no way out, one dead body, one living monster. If you value innocent life, meet me tomorrow at 9 in the evening at Candlelight House. Bring no companion, trust no one. Poirot lifted his head, his lips curved in a small smile. Trust no one. People always said that when they had something to hide. He folded the letter again with care and placed it in a fresh envelope. He liked order, even with a wicked note. The waiter walked past. Poirot raised one finger. "My friend, you may take this cake away." The young man stared. "You do not want it, sir." Poirot shook his head. "I have lost my hunger. That, my good fellow, means only one thing. There is a case." He rose from his chair. His joints did not crack. He would never permit such a thing. He picked up his hat and coat and walked out into the fog. His mind was already busy and bright. A locked room, no weapon, no way in, no way out. Such words were bait for his little grey cells. He smiled to himself as he walked. Someone knew his weakness. Someone clever, or someone desperate, or both. Far away from London, in a small and peaceful village, Miss Jane Marple sat by her window. Her knitting needles clicked like tiny footsteps. A pot of tea rested on a tray by her side. Her life was calm on the outside, yet on the inside her mind hopped from thought to thought like a quick little bird. She liked it that way. On her small table lay an envelope. It had arrived that morning. The postman had been most interested. He had said the paper looked grand enough for royalty. Miss Marple had smiled. Village people loved a bit of drama. The letter was open now. She had read it 3 times. To the sharpest eyes in England, innocent life may soon be lost. A wicked crime waits in London. A locked room, no weapon, no way in, no way out. One dead body, one living monster. Only a mind that knows true human nature can hope to stop it. Come to Candlelight House tomorrow at 9 in the evening. Tell no one, trust no one. Miss Marple's needles had paused after the first line. Sharpest eyes in England. That sounded very flattering. Quite wrong, of course. Still very pleasant. She read it once more and shook her head. "People are wicked," she said softly. "Very wicked. But they are also very untidy. They always leave some small thing out of place." Her mind began to match the words to old faces in the village. A locked room. That reminded her of Mrs. Finch, who had locked herself in the pantry one Christmas. No way in, no way out. Until young Tom had taken the door off its hinges, and the poor woman had come out in a flood of tears and flour. That had not been murder, of course, only greed and a great many mince pies. Still, the pattern of people was always the same: fear, selfishness, anger, envy, pride. They wore new suits in the city, yet inside they looked very much like her own dear villagers. She folded the letter and slipped it into her old handbag. It felt strange there beside her purse and her small pair of scissors. At that moment her friend Mrs. Hartnell knocked and walked in without waiting. As usual. "My dear Jane, what a morning. You will not believe what Mrs. Price Ridley has done now." Miss Marple smiled. "Do tell me." For 10 long minutes Mrs. Hartnell poured out village gossip, a dress that was too young for its wearer, a cake that had clearly come from a shop and not from any honest oven, a look exchanged at the grocer, a whisper at the vicarage tea. Miss Marple listened and nodded. Her knitting moved once more. Her thoughts, however, had left the village street. They were already walking through a dark London house at 9 in the evening. At last Mrs. Hartnell took a deep breath. "But here I am talking about small things. You look quite thoughtful, my dear. Is something the matter?" Miss Marple hesitated for only a moment. Then she smiled her mild, sweet smile. "Nothing at all. Just thinking about a bit of old business." Because the letter had given one very clear order: tell no one. In London the fog grew thicker. Near the river stood the great stone building of Scotland Yard. Inside, a tall man in a worn yet tidy suit leaned over his desk. His name was Inspector Arthur Graves. He had dark eyes. He had the patient look of a man who has heard every silly lie a suspect can tell and expects to hear them all again. On his desk lay an envelope that looked just like the one Poirot had received, just like the one in Miss Marple's bag. He read it again, slowly. He was not a man who rushed. "To the best of the law in London, one of your own may soon die at the hands of a killer. A locked room, no weapon, no way in, no way out. A crime that will shame Scotland Yard. A crime that only you can stop. Come to Candlelight House tomorrow at 9 in the evening, and come alone. Trust no one, not even those you admire." Graves felt a small cold knot form in his stomach. Not even those you admire. Names moved through his mind: great detectives, skilled officers, people who liked their own reputation a little too much. This letter was meant to sting. It worked. He stood up straight and put the letter into his pocket. "Candlelight House," he said aloud. "Never heard of it." A young constable at the next desk looked up. "Sir?" "Nothing. Just talking to myself, as usual." He would not show the letter to the others. Not yet. If this was a joke, he would handle it. If it was not a joke, he would still handle it. That was his job. Outside, the fog pressed against the windows like a live thing. The city hid its secrets with great pleasure. In 3 different places, 3 different minds made the same private choice. "I will go." None of them knew that the same writer had called them. None of them knew that the others would be there. The stage was almost set. The last light of day slipped away like a shy servant. Night waited with quiet interest. Chapter 1, Part 2. The next day moved slowly, and yet somehow too fast. Hercule Poirot spent the morning in his small apartment. He arranged his clothes with care: a grey suit for seriousness, a clean white shirt for respect, a neat tie for order, a perfect handkerchief for small emergencies. He polished his shoes until he could see his own face in them. Then he sat in his armchair. He closed his eyes. He let the details of the letter float in front of his mind. Locked room, no weapon, no way in, no way out. He repeated the words as if they were notes of music. He looked for places where the tune sounded wrong. A writer who spoke so confidently of impossibility. Very interesting. It suggested pride, or a need to impress. He thought of his own past cases, of killers who loved drama, of quiet ones who hid behind loud fools. Somewhere inside the grand words of the letter sat a real human heart, weak, twisted, frightened. He would find it. Near midday, a visitor called. Captain Hastings, cheerful face, warm handshake. "Poirot, my dear fellow, I thought we might have lunch." Poirot opened his eyes and smiled gently. "I am afraid not today, mon ami. I must prepare for a very special appointment." "Ah, a case then?" "Perhaps, perhaps not. We shall see." Hastings looked deeply interested and slightly hurt. Poirot saw this at once. "You may comfort yourself, my friend. If there is something truly heroic, I will be sure to tell you every detail later." Hastings laughed and shook his head. "You always do. Good luck tonight, then." Tonight. The word sat in the air like a small bell. While London buzzed and hurried, Miss Marple prepared for her own journey. She took out her best yet oldest travel dress, the one that did not show creases, always useful in trains. She packed a small bag, one warm shawl, one clean blouse, one little jar of cold cream, a book of prayers, a folded list of the plants in her garden. It made her feel calm. She hesitated, then added something else, a small ball of string, a pack of pins. People had no idea how often such simple things became useful when wickedness was near. Before she left, she walked around her tiny sitting room. She touched the back of her favorite chair, the arm of the sofa, the worn place on the carpet. "Do not look at me like that," she told the room. "I will be back very soon." The room did not answer, of course, yet somehow she felt better. At the station she met the usual faces, the ticket man, the porter, Mrs. Hartnell again with a new flood of gossip about a letter that had come for the vicar. It seemed even the post could not resist drama this week. "You are going to London again, Jane. My goodness, you do keep busy." "Yes," said Miss Marple. "I have a few errands, some small business, nothing exciting at all." Her mild blue eyes did not give away the jump of her thoughts. As the train moved away, she watched the village grow smaller. Roofs and trees and fields slid back like pages in a book. Ahead lay the city, thick air, loud voices, big crimes. She folded her hands on her lap and looked as sweet and harmless as any old lady. Inside her mind, however, a bright lamp burned. Inspector Graves spent his day pretending everything was normal. He signed papers, spoke to witnesses, gave a short talk to a group of young officers on the subject of patience. All the while, Candlelight House sat in the back of his mind like a dark picture on a wall. In the afternoon, he called a file clerk to his desk. "Ever heard of Candlelight House?" The clerk shook his head at once. "No, sir. Is it a lodging house?" Graves frowned slightly. "Find out for me, quietly. No need to ask everyone. Use your brain first." The clerk hurried away. After an hour he came back, looking faintly pleased. "There is one note, sir. Candlelight House, old private home on the edge of the city, near the river. Belongs to some family that lost most of its money. It has been rented out for parties in recent years. That is all I could see." "Any trouble there before?" "No, sir. No record." "Good, thank you." Graves leaned back. A private house used for parties. That fit the tone of the letter. It had style. He did not like crimes with style. They rarely ended well. Evening came at last. The city lights shook in the mist. The river moved like black silk. Somewhere a church bell rang 9 slow notes. Candlelight House stood near the water. Its dark brick walls rose high over the street. Tall windows looked out like cold eyes. A line of iron railings guarded the front steps. On each post sat a glass lamp. Only one of these lamps was lit. It burned with a soft, pale flame. Hercule Poirot arrived first. A cab dropped him at the corner. He stepped out and paid the driver. The house came into view as he walked closer. His eyes noted each detail: the state of the steps, the way the light fell, the pattern of the curtains. At the door he paused. He straightened his tie. He rang the bell. For a moment nothing happened. Night held its breath. Then the door opened just a little. Not by a servant, not by a grand host, by no one at all. The hall behind the door was empty. The lamp inside burned steady. No voice welcomed him, no footstep moved. Poirot felt a small thrill at the back of his neck. He did not believe in ghosts. He did, however, believe in traps. He stepped inside. The door swung shut behind him with a soft yet final sound. In another cab, Miss Marple arrived near the same street. She stepped out carefully and thanked the driver. Her eyes looked small and gentle behind her glasses, yet she saw everything: the fog near the ground, the shape of the house, the way one window on the top floor was dark when all the others were lit. Such things were important, very important. Houses could be just like people. They had moods, secrets, bad habits. She reached the gate and touched the cold iron. "Candlelight House," she whispered. "Someone gave you a fancy name? I hope you have decent manners." She walked up the steps and rang the bell. Inside, Inspector Graves stood in the hall. He had entered by a side door after picking the old lock with a tool he would never admit to owning. He did not like the open front door. It felt too inviting. He trusted only doors that resisted him. He heard the bell ring. So, he thought, here we go. He moved toward the entrance. At the same time, Poirot stepped from the inner hall. At the very same moment, the front door opened, and Miss Marple stood there with her neat bag and her calm, bright eyes. For one long second they all stared at one another. 3 strangers, 3 hunters, 1 trap. Before any of them could speak, the light above their heads flickered. The house seemed to sigh. Somewhere deeper inside, a sound rose, a faint cry, cut off at once. Then a heavy thud. Something or someone had fallen. The real invitation had been given. Now the true story would begin. For a moment, no one moved. The house held that strange, still sound that comes after a shout, as if the walls were thinking about what they had heard. Poirot turned his head first. He looked at Miss Marple, then at Inspector Graves. His eyes were bright and sharp. "So, I am not the only guest," he said. His tone was light, yet his gaze was not. Inspector Graves showed his badge with a quick, hard motion. "Scotland Yard," he said. "Who are you, and what are you doing here?" Poirot bowed a little. "I am Hercule Poirot. I am here because of a letter. I think perhaps you too have received such a thing." Miss Marple stepped inside and closed the door behind her. The sound of the latch felt heavy and final. She looked from one man to the other. Her face was gentle, her eyes were not. "I also had a letter," she said. "It asked me to come to this house. It warned me to trust no one." Inspector Graves frowned. "Trust no one." The same words. He spoke in a short, firm voice. "Someone has brought us together. Someone who thinks himself very clever." "Or herself," murmured Miss Marple. "Wickedness is very fair about such matters." Before they could say more, that sound came again into their minds. The cut-off cry, the fall. Graves straightened at once. "We waste time," he said. "That noise came from inside the house. Stay close. Do not touch anything you do not have to touch." Poirot lifted one brow. "You give the orders, Inspector, but permit me to think the thoughts." Miss Marple simply nodded. Her hand tightened on the strap of her bag. Inside it, the small ball of string and the pins sat quiet and ready. They walked down the long hall. The floor creaked under their feet. Old houses like to speak in such small, rude ways. On the walls hung portraits of stern people with cold eyes. Their painted faces watched these new guests. The first door led to a dark study full of books, empty. The second to a breakfast room where a white cloth still lay on the table. 3 plates, 3 cups, no food, no heat in the teapot. As if someone had planned a meal and then thought better of it. "This is not quite friendly," said Miss Marple in a mild tone. Inspector Graves gave a short nod. "We keep moving." The sound was heavier than a tray. That was a body. They searched the ground floor, room after room. A music room with a silent piano, a drawing room with chairs turned at odd angles. Here and there a cushion on the floor as if dropped in haste. No people. No servants, not even a cat. Poirot stopped near the bottom of the main stairs. He bent and touched the wood with one finger. "Dust here," he said softly, but a mark through it. "Fresh. Someone else has walked here not long ago." Graves saw the faint line at once. "Up then," he said. The three of them began to climb. The house seemed to breathe around them. Boards shifted. A pipe gave a small groan inside a wall. Far away a clock struck the quarter hour. On the first landing 3 doors waited. 2 stood a little open. 1 stood shut. Very shut. "The cry," Graves said. "It came from above us." He pushed the first door open with his foot. A bedroom lay behind it. The covers on the bed were smooth. A coat hung on the back of a chair. A hat lay on the pillow, as if someone had dressed for travel and then changed their mind. The next room was a small sitting room. Miss Marple glanced in. "Look at the ash on that little table," she said. "Someone has been smoking nervously. See how the ash is spread. A calm person taps, a nervous one shakes." Poirot gave her an approving look. "Very true, mademoiselle." She smiled a little. She had seen such ash many times in her village when young ladies waited to tell some foolish lie. The third door on the landing did not open to their touch. Inspector Graves tried the handle. "Locked," he said. Poirot tilted his head. "A locked room," he said softly, "and we come so soon to the heart of the drama." He placed his ear to the wood. The house was quiet, too quiet. Graves knocked hard. "Police," he called. "Open this door." Silence. He looked at the others, his jaw set. "Stand back," he said. He shouldered the door. The wood shook but did not break. This house had been built to keep secrets very safe. Poirot watched the frame with care. "Here, Inspector," he said. "The lock is old. The wood has cracked just here. One more blow for the pride of Scotland Yard." Graves hit the door once more with his full weight. The lock tore from the frame. The door flew inward. The air that flowed out was cold and still. Inside the room, a man lay on the floor near the center. He wore a dark suit. His arms were flung wide. His head was turned to one side at a strange angle. Beneath him, the boards were stained dark. Miss Marple drew in a small breath. Poirot felt a sharp twist in his chest. Graves moved forward at once, then stopped himself. "Hold," he said. "We do not trample more than we must." He stepped with great care around the body. He bent and touched the neck. "No pulse," he said. "He is gone. Neck broken, I think." Poirot looked at the windows. "Closed," he said, "and locked." He tried the nearest one with his fingers. The old latch held firm. He turned to the door they had just broken. On the inside, the key still sat in the lock. Miss Marple moved her eyes around the floor. "The dust is smooth," she said. "No clear footprints. Or rather, many light ones mixed. Someone has swept this room." Poirot nodded slowly. "The chairs," he said. "Look." 2 chairs stood near the walls. Both were straight and stiff. One had a cushion, one had none. Neither had been moved in some time. Their legs were sunk deep in the dust. Yet the body lay not far from the center of the room, as if he had fallen from height. Graves rubbed his jaw. "Could he have jumped?" he said. "From what?" asked Poirot. "Look up." They raised their faces. Above them the ceiling showed no hole, no open hatch, no secret door that they could see, only a round light fitting that hung in the middle. Miss Marple spoke in a quiet, clear voice. "A man with a broken neck does not walk around and lock doors behind him," she said. "Someone was here with him, someone who is now not here." Graves straightened. "But how did that someone leave?" He looked at the door and the key inside, at the shut windows. Poirot's eyes were now very bright. "Ah," he said, "this is most excellent. Our unseen host keeps his promise. No way in, no way out." He moved closer to the body without touching it. He studied the hands, the shoes, the face. "Do you know him?" Inspector Graves asked. Graves shook his head. "No, I have never seen this man. and yet he is dressed too well to be just anyone. Good cloth, good shoes. He is someone. We will know soon enough." Miss Marple looked at the dead man with a kind of sad respect. Every corpse, she thought, had once been a small child. Somebody had held him and hoped for him. It never stopped being a pity. She spoke aloud. "His hair is neat," she said, "yet his tie is a little wrong, looser on one side. That often happens when a man is pulled or pushed by the neck. It is a small thing, but small things matter." Poirot gave her a sharp, pleased look. "You observe much, miss." "Marple," she said. "Jane Marple, of St. Mary Mead." Poirot bowed his head. "Then I am honoured." Inspector Graves gave them each a short stare. "You two know each other's names," he said. "That is nice. I want to know who brought you here, and why, and who this poor devil is. So look well now. We may not get another clean look at the room once my men arrive." He went to the hall and called down for the local station. His voice sounded harsh in the empty house. Miss Marple walked slowly around the room. She did not step close to the body. She looked instead at the small things, a glass on the shelf. It was empty, yet held a faint ring inside. It had once had water, or maybe something else. The rim showed one clear lip mark, just one. Someone drank fast, she thought, and alone. On the mantelpiece stood a clock. It had stopped at 5 minutes past 8. "The time of the fall?" asked Poirot when she pointed to it. "Perhaps," she said, "or perhaps someone wanted us to think so. People often move clocks. They like to play with time." Poirot chuckled softly. "True, murderers are very fond of a little theatre." In the corner of the room a small scrap of paper lay near the skirting board. Miss Marple bent with some care and peered at it. It was no bigger than a stamp, yet it had clear, thick paper and a faint smell of scent. A woman's scent. She did not touch it. She only noted the position in her mind. Such tiny things, she thought. Ash, a mark in dust, a scrap of paper. Yet these were the threads that would one day show the full pattern. Outside in the hall, the front door bell rang again, loud, sharp, as if someone impatient had arrived. Graves looked up with a dark eye. "More guests," he said. "This is becoming quite a party." Chapter 2, Part 2. Inspector Graves left the locked room to meet the new visitor. Poirot and Miss Marple stayed where they were. Poirot stood with his hands behind his back. His gaze moved slowly from object to object, like a cat watching a strange room. Miss Marple took one last careful look at the dead man. She had seen death before, in quiet rooms with old people, in sad little accidents. This death felt different. It had a bright, glittering edge. Like a show, someone wanted attention. She moved closer to the window. The glass was old and thick. Outside she saw the river as a dark line. Lights moved on it. A boat, perhaps. Near the glass a faint smear showed, as if a hand had rested there. "Mr. Poirot," she said. He joined her. "Ah, yes," he said. "Someone stood here, while the room was still quiet." He bent his head. His eyes were very near the glass. "No sign of a tool," he said. "No scratch on the frame. These windows have not been forced." Miss Marple nodded. "Then, if someone left this room," she said, "they did not use this window." "No," he said, "they did not." Yet something in his voice told her he was not yet certain, not quite. At that moment Inspector Graves came back. Behind him walked a thin woman in a dark coat. Her face was pale, but her eyes were fierce. She had the look of one who expects trouble and prefers to bite it before it bites her. "This is Mrs. Lydia Harrow," said Graves. "For the moment she is our hostess. She rented the house for this evening." Mrs. Harrow gave a short, stiff nod. "I do not like the word hostess, Inspector," she said. "I did not invite a corpse into my party." Her voice was sharp, yet it trembled a little. Miss Marple heard both notes, strength and fear, a very common mix. Poirot bowed. "Madame," he said, "you also received a letter, perhaps?" She turned those bright eyes on him. "Yes," she said, "I did. It said that if I wished to save my family name from shame, I must rent this house tonight. It sent the money. More money than I have seen in a long time. And it said I must not ask questions. You obeyed, said Poirot softly. She lifted her chin. I am not a rich woman, sir. My husband left debts when he died. My brother writes from abroad and says there is no work. My son needs school. You may judge me if you like. I took the money and I rented the house. Miss Marple spoke in a gentle tone. You are not the only one who obeyed a letter, my dear. Graves cut in. Mrs. Harrow, did you know this man? He pointed to the body. She looked and shook her head at once. Her hand moved to her throat. No, I swear it. I have never seen him before. Her eyes filled for a moment, then cleared. But you expected somebody, said Poirot. Yes, she said. The letter said that a man would meet me here at 9 with news that would change my life. It told me to light only one lamp in the hall and to keep the rest of the house quiet. So I did. But when I came, the door was open. There were no servants, no one at all. I waited in the drawing room. Then I heard voices and this dreadful crash. Graves frowned. So, you were downstairs when the man died? Yes, I heard nothing before. No footsteps on the stairs, no struggle, only that last sound. Miss Marple watched her face. The woman was speaking truth, yet she was also hiding something. Not about the death, perhaps, but about herself. It was in the way her eyes slipped aside when she mentioned her family, as if there was some figure there she did not wish to show. Poirot seemed to sense the same thing. Your family name, he said. You fear shame for it. Why is that, madam? She pressed her lips tight. That is my own business, sir. Graves took a step toward her. Not any longer, he said. A man is dead in this room, in a house you rented. Shame is now police business. She flinched, yet still she did not speak. Miss Marple stepped forward. Perhaps I might make us a little tea, she said. I always find murder sinks in more gently with tea. It was such an odd, calm thing to say that both men stared at her. Mrs. Harrow, however, gave a small, wild laugh that turned half into a sob. Tea, she said. Yes, yes, I will make tea. There is a kitchen at the back. Graves raised a hand. No, you stay where I can see you. A constable will make tea when he arrives. Mrs. Harrow's shoulders sagged. Very well, she said. Have it your way. Poirot turned to Graves. Inspector, he said in a low voice, when your men come, you will wish to take measurements and prints. Miss Marple and I will only be in the way here. Might we instead walk through the rest of the house? Sometimes a murder has a shadow, a little distance from the body. Graves thought for a moment. All right, he said at last, but do not go near the doors or windows without me, and shout if you find anything. He remained in the locked room with the body and with Mrs. Harrow, who sat in a chair by the wall. She stared at the floor and twisted a ring on her finger, again and again. Poirot and Miss Marple went back into the hall. She gave him a small, sidelong look. You enjoy this, Mr. Poirot, she said. He placed a hand on his heart. Enjoy is not the word, mademoiselle. I find it most interesting. And when my little grey cells are fully awake, I am happy. Yes. Even when the subject is most sad. She nodded. We are much the same then, she said. I do not like wickedness. Yet I must admit it is often more interesting than goodness. At least it gives the mind something to do. They entered another room on the upper floor. This one seemed to be a guest bedroom. On the table stood a small case, not very large, not very new. On the lid, the initials A.G. were stamped in faded gold. Poirot touched it with one finger. Arthur Graves, he said. Our inspector came well prepared. The case was locked. Miss Marple saw his glance and gave a tiny shrug. People who work with crime often travel with a case, she said. There are files, papers, extra shirts. It does not prove guilt. Poirot smiled. You are very fair, Miss Marple. The mind that sees guilt too quickly is as blind as the one that never sees it at all. They went back to the stairs and climbed to the top floor. Here the air felt colder. The carpet was thin. One window at the end of the passage stood dark, as Miss Marple had noted when she arrived. Poirot tried the first small door. It led to a box room full of trunks, old trunks with labels from past trips. Miss Marple peered at one. "C. Harrow," she read, "Australia." She gave a soft, little, "ah." "So, that is the brother who writes from abroad," she said. "There is more travel in this family than Mrs. Harrow cared to say." Poirot checked another label. One trunk had no name, simply a hotel label with the word Nice on it. The corner of the label was torn, only the letters Ni were clear. He looked thoughtful. "We will remember this," he said. "Trunks are like people, they keep things, sometimes too well." The next door on the top floor was locked, not with a key. With a simple bolt on the outside, Poirot slid it back and opened the door. Inside was a small, narrow room. No carpet, no pictures, just a bed, a chair, and a table. On the table lay a notebook. Miss Marple went close and looked. The pages were blank, all but one. On that single page, somebody had written just 3 words. "Trust no one." "The same words as in our letters," she said. Poirot nodded. "And written in the same hand, I think. Our host used this room. Perhaps he slept here. Perhaps he only sat and thought. A very secret thinker." He looked around. No clothes, no case, no personal things. It is as if he never had a body, only hands to write with. Miss Marple touched the blanket on the bed. "Warm," she said. "Someone sat here not long ago." "So our ghost is still very much alive," said Poirot. Back below they heard new feet on the stairs, heavy and many. The police had arrived. Voices filled the house. Orders were shouted. The stillness broke into small, noisy parts. Poirot and Miss Marple walked down slowly. In the hall, a young constable stared at them with round eyes. "Who are you, then?" he asked. Poirot smiled. "Just 2 people the letter forgot to fear," he said, for the moment. Miss Marple looked back up the stairs. She thought of the dead man in the locked room, of Mrs. Harrow and her shame, of trunks from far away, of a narrow bed still warm. Somewhere in this house she felt the writer of those letters had left one more clue, one small, foolish, selfish human sign. She meant to find it. Chapter 3. The house grew louder as more police officers filled the halls. Their boots made heavy steps. Their voices rose and fell like a busy market. Yet in the middle of all this noise, Miss Marple and Hercule Poirot stood perfectly still. They looked like 2 small, quiet islands in a wild sea. Inspector Graves met them on the stairs. His face looked stern. His eyes looked tired, though he tried to hide it. "The doctor says the man has been dead for at least 1 hour," he told them. "No more and not much less. His neck was broken. There are no marks on his hands, no sign that he fought. He did not even try to defend himself." Miss Marple nodded slowly. "That means he trusted the person," she said, "or at least he did not expect danger. People rarely defend themselves against someone they know. Only strangers make them ready to run." Poirot tapped his chin. "Very true, Miss Marple, and we saw no sign of a struggle. The room was clean, a little too clean perhaps." Graves looked at Poirot with a deep frown. "If someone killed him in that room, then that someone must still be inside this house," he said. "I have men guarding the doors. No one has left, so we must find our invisible guest." Miss Marple gave a soft sound of agreement. "The trouble with clever people," she said, "is that they forget how simple people can be. Someone clever locks a room. Someone simple hides in a closet." Poirot raised one eyebrow. "A closet is too small for a murderer, mademoiselle." She smiled. "You would be surprised, Mr. Poirot. I have known murderers who were small in body yet large in pride. They fear discovery more than they fear discomfort. They will fold themselves like old laundry if they must." Graves sighed. "We will search every room, every trunk, every cupboard. I want nothing left unseen." While the officers began to spread across the house, Miss Marple and Poirot slipped into the drawing-room. The room was large and dim. A single lamp glowed on one small table. Its light made soft shadows on the walls. It made the whole room look like a stage waiting for actors to speak. Miss Marple walked toward the fireplace. She looked at the mantel, at the pale soot, at the cold ashes. "There was a fire here today," she said. "Not long ago. Someone warmed themselves. And see this." She pointed at a small mark on the stone near the grate. A soft brown circle. "Coffee," she said. "Someone placed a cup here. In a hurry, I think. People in a hurry forget to use a tray." Poirot stepped closer and bent to look. "A very small clue," he said. "Yet all crimes are made of small things." Miss Marple nodded. "Small things and big tempers," she said. "Most wicked acts happen because someone cannot control their temper for one little moment." Poirot straightened and looked around the room. Someone waited in this room tonight. Someone sat here. Someone listened. Someone watched. And someone walked upstairs at the right moment. Miss Marple thought this over. "Or someone was already upstairs," she said. "People who hide often choose rooms far from noise. They enjoy shadows. They enjoy quiet. It makes their secrets feel safe." Poirot smiled at her. "You have a great talent for wicked minds, Miss Marple." "And you have a gift for tidy minds, Mr. Poirot," she replied. "But wicked minds are rarely tidy. They are messy, like small children who break things and then try to hide the pieces." Poirot laughed softly. "Together then," he said, "we shall solve this little puzzle." From the hall outside they heard a sudden shout. It was a short, sharp cry, a cry that said someone had found something important. The two detectives hurried out. Inspector Graves stood at the bottom of the stairs. He looked angry and worried together. In front of him stood a young constable. The boy held something in his shaking hands. "What is it?" asked Poirot. The constable swallowed hard. "We found this in the cupboard near the study, sir." He held out a long, thin silk scarf. Bright, red, smooth, elegant. The kind of thing a lady wore to draw eyes. Miss Marple lifted her brows at once. "A red scarf," she said softly. "Someone bold wore this. Someone who likes to be seen. And yet she hid it. Strange." Graves studied the scarf. "Does it belong to Mrs. Harrow?" he said. Miss Marple shook her head. "No, she would choose darker colors. Something safe, something polite. She is the type who wants no one to talk about her. This scarf belongs to a woman who enjoys talk." Poirot nodded. "And there is a faint smell on it," he said. "A strange, sweet scent." Miss Marple leaned closer. "Orange blossom," she said. "I know that scent. My nephew sent me perfume from France once. It smelled just like this." Graves narrowed his eyes. "Then we have a woman guest in this house who has not shown herself." Poirot looked around as if he expected her to appear at that very moment. "If she is still here," he said, "she will be afraid. Murder often frightens the friends of the killer as much as the enemies." Miss Marple touched the scarf with one careful finger. "Some women wear bright colors when they want attention," she said. "Some wear them when they fear being forgotten. But no woman hides such a scarf unless she fears trouble." She folded her hands. "Which means she knows something." Before they could speak more, the front door opened. Cold night air flowed in. 3 more officers stepped inside, and behind them walked a thin, trembling man with soft, pale hair and darting eyes. He looked like someone who brought trouble with him everywhere. Graves looked sharply at him. "Name," he demanded. The thin man licked his lips. "Harold Finch," he said. "I work for Mrs. Harrow. She told me to come here if anything strange happened, and I thought I saw someone near the gate, someone in a dark coat, someone watching the house." Poirot leaned in. "Did you see the face?" he asked. "No, sir," said Harold Finch. "Only a shadow, a tall shadow. It moved away when I tried to speak." Miss Marple watched the man. She noted his shaking hands, his fearful eyes. She also noted something else. His collar had fine red threads stuck to it, almost too small to see, but she saw them. Red threads, just like the red scarf. Miss Marple smiled in a mild, gentle way. She did not say a word. Not yet. She saved this little fact in her mind like a secret pinned to a cushion. She knew she would need it very soon. Harold Finch stood in the hall with his shoulders hunched and his hat twisting in his hands. He looked from face to face like a rabbit in a field full of dogs. Inspector Graves watched him with cool, dark eyes. "So, Harold Finch," he said, "you work for Mrs. Harrow." "Yes, sir," Finch answered. "I manage small things, bills and letters and such. I help her arrange rooms when she lets them. I deal with people who might cause trouble." "You are here tonight because of trouble," said Graves. Finch swallowed. "Yes, sir. Mrs. Harrow told me there might be some odd business tonight. She said if the house felt wrong I should come at once." Miss Marple tilted her head. "And did it feel wrong when you came?" she asked. Finch stared at her, as if surprised that this small, neat lady had spoken. "Yes, madam," he said. "The fog felt wrong, the street felt wrong, and the house was too quiet. No music, no talk, only this queer feeling, as if someone was holding their breath." Poirot studied his face. "And you saw a tall shadow near the gate," he said. Finch nodded. "Yes, sir, tall and thin, wearing a dark coat," I called out. The shape turned and slipped away into the fog. I thought it best to come inside. Graves folded his arms. "Did you go upstairs, Mr. Finch?" "No, sir. I only came as far as the hall. Then your men found me." Miss Marple watched the small red threads on his collar. They glowed in her mind like little flags. She spoke in a mild tone. "Mr. Finch," she said, "do you ever help Mrs. Harrow with her clothes?" Finch blinked. "Her clothes, madam?" "Yes," she said. "Many ladies ask help with trunks and boxes." "Sometimes," he said, "if there is heavy lifting. But I do not choose her dresses, if that is what you mean." Miss Marple smiled. "No, I think Mrs. Harrow chooses rather plain things. I was wondering about more bright garments, a red silk scarf, perhaps." Finch flinched at once. His eyes darted to the cupboard where the scarf had been found. "Red," he said. "I do not know about any red scarf." Inspector Graves gave a dry sound. "That is bad lying, lad," he said. "Very bad. We have the scarf. We found it in the cupboard by the study." Finch licked his lips. His hands shook more. "It is not mine," he said quickly. "I swear it." Miss Marple stepped a little closer. "No, Mr. Finch," she said softly. "It does not belong to you, but some of its threads rest on your collar." She spoke without heat. She spoke as if she told him his boot was untied. Finch grabbed at his collar with a strangled sound. He looked guilty and frightened and very small. "I did not kill anyone," he burst out. "I did not. I only helped her." Graves moved in at once. "Helped? Who?" he said. Finch looked from Miss Marple to Poirot to Graves. He seemed to measure them and see that there was no safe place left to hide. He lowered his head. "Her name is Estelle," he whispered. "Estelle Grey. She is a friend of Mrs. Harrow. She asked to use this house tonight. She said it was important. She always wears red. She likes it. She thinks it suits her hair." "Where is this Estelle?" now asked Poirot. "I do not know," said Finch. "She was here earlier. I swear she was. She came this afternoon to look at the rooms. She gave me some money for Mrs. Harrow. She said there would be a private meeting. She told me I must keep my mouth shut if I wanted more work." Graves stepped closer still. "Did you see her after dark?" Finch shook his head. "No, sir. I went home. Then Mrs. Harrow sent a message. She said the house felt wrong, so I came back. And then there were police and a dead man." Miss Marple listened with her usual gentle face. Inside her mind she placed each word on a small shelf and waited to see which ones would fall off. She spoke again. "Mr. Finch," she said, "when you came this afternoon, did Estelle Grey have guests with her?" Finch hesitated. "One man," he said, "a tall man with dark hair, well dressed. I did not see his face clearly. He did not wish to be seen. He stood near the window with his back turned." Poirot glanced at Graves. "Our dead friend, perhaps," he said, "or perhaps yet another ghost." Inspector Graves made a sharp sign to one of the officers. "Send a man to find Estelle Grey," he said. "Ask at Mrs. Harrow House. Ask in every shop nearby. I want her brought here at once." The officer hurried off. Graves turned back to Finch. "You will stay in this house until I say otherwise," he said. "Try to leave and I will put you in a cell so dark you will miss this fog." Finch gave a small, broken nod. "Yes, sir," he said. "I will stay." He sank onto a hall chair. His hands still tore at his hat. Miss Marple and Poirot walked a little way down the hall together. "So," said Poirot quietly, "we have Mrs. Harrow. We have her helper, Mr. Finch. We have a missing lady with a red scarf. We have a dead man in a locked room. And we have a writer of letters, who may be all of them or none of them." Miss Marple gave a soft, thoughtful hum. "In my village," she said, "when there are this many people in one piece of trouble, they are usually all hiding different things. Only one is hiding murder. The others are hiding foolishness, or shame, or romance." Poirot smiled. "Ah, romance," he said, "the secret partner of crime." They moved back into the drawing-room. Miss Marple took the nearest armchair with the ease of a woman who has sat in many such chairs. Poirot stood by the mantel and looked at his own reflection in the dark glass of the empty grate. "Tell me, Miss Marple," he said, "what do you think of Mrs. Harrow?" She folded her small hands. "She is proud," she said, "and very frightened. Not only of the police, she fears disgrace more. That means there is someone in her family whose actions might be shameful. Perhaps the brother in Australia. Perhaps another. And she is tired, deeply tired. That kind of tired person may do foolish things for money." Poirot nodded. "And Mr. Finch?" Miss Marple's eyes twinkled just a little. "He is the sort of man who is always on the edge of gossip," she said. "He hears secrets on both sides of a door. He carries messages and tells himself he is too small to matter when trouble comes. Yet such small men often hold the keys to many big doors." Poirot looked pleased. "You see people very truly, Miss Marple," he said. "I have had a great deal of practice," she replied. They sat in a mild silence. Outside, the fog pressed at the windows. Inside, footsteps moved above and below. Now and then a voice called for a notebook or for string to mark a place on the floor. After a while, an officer entered. He carried a small tray with a teapot and cups that had been found in the kitchen. The tea was strong and plain. Miss Marple accepted a cup with a small nod of thanks. Murder or no murder, she thought, one must keep up proper habits. Poirot sipped his own tea with a slight frown. "This is not quite as fine as I prefer," he said, "but tonight we drink for clarity, not for pleasure." Inspector Graves joined them a few minutes later. His look had grown even more grim. "We checked the room again," he said. "No rope, no weapon, no sign of how the neck was broken. The doctor says it could have been done by a strong twist, one quick, sharp movement." Poirot glanced at his own small hands. "So our killer is strong," he said, "or knows just how to use the body. That suggests training of some sort, or a great deal of practice." Miss Marple looked into her teacup as if it held a small mirror. "In my village," she said, "the only people who learn to twist necks cleanly are those who deal with chickens or with cruel sport, men who hunt for pleasure, not for food." Graves tapped his fingers on the back of a chair. "We will find out who this man is by morning," he said. His pockets held a few papers, one card with a name and a club address. "We will know soon enough." Miss Marple lifted her head. "A club," she said. "Then you may expect more drama, Inspector. Clubs are full of people who live for talk. Once they smell scandal, they will crowd around it like bees around sugar." Graves gave a short, rough half-smile. "Then we will give them nothing to chew on," he said. "Not yet." Poirot set down his cup. "Inspector," he said, "there is still one part of this house that I wish to examine more closely. The stairs that lead from the top floor to the ground. At least one of them feels wrong beneath the foot. Did you notice?" Graves frowned. "No, I did not." Miss Marple gave a small nod. "I felt it too," she said, a hollow sound on the third step from the top. Graves straightened. A hollow step, he said. Poirot smiled. Yes, and hollow steps often lead to hollow stories. Perhaps our locked room is not as locked as our host would like us to believe. They moved toward the stairs together, Miss Marple at one side, Poirot at the other, Graves behind them. The house watched in its silent way as they climbed once more. Beneath their feet, the third step waited. Chapter 4. The three of them stood on the stairs for a long, quiet moment. The house felt strangely alive around them. The old walls seemed to breathe. The lamps flickered with a soft, uncertain glow. From far away, a clock struck again, as if reminding them all that time was moving and someone somewhere was watching. Poirot bent over the third step. He pressed his hand on the wood. It gave a soft, hollow sound that did not match the other steps. Miss Marple leaned down as far as her old bones would permit. "I said so," she murmured. "Hollow steps often hide hollow behavior. People love to store secrets under their feet. They think no one will ever look there." Inspector Graves crouched beside them. He ran his knuckles along the edge of the step. It opened with a small, tired sigh. Inside lay a narrow, dark space filled with dust, yet the dust had been disturbed. Someone had reached in not long ago. Inside the hollow space rested a thin metal object. Poirot lifted it carefully between two gloved fingers. "A small silver hook," he said, "long and curved, strong enough to hold weight for a moment." Miss Marple gave a small sound of interest. "A hook," she said, "to catch something, or perhaps to pull down a rope." Graves frowned. "There is no rope in the locked room." Poirot nodded. "True, but perhaps there once was. A rope dropped from the ceiling, a hook used to pull it back up, the rope removed afterward. Very neat, very tidy, very planned." Miss Marple looked up the stairwell. "Someone could stand there," she said. "They could lower a rope through a narrow place, then pull it away again. But where is the opening?" Poirot tapped the wall next to the stairs. "Behind this wall, perhaps, or above the landing. Murderers who love drama enjoy tricks. They like puzzles. They like to confuse." Graves tightened his jaw. "A trick, a rope, a fall, a broken neck. It begins to make sense." Miss Marple shook her head softly. "Not complete sense, Inspector. Murder is never simple, even when people try to make it look simple." Poirot closed the hollow step and stood. "We must search the place above us," he said. "There must be some space where a rope could pass through. It will not be obvious. Clever people rarely leave open doors. They leave small cracks. And they hope no one looks at them." They walked back up the remaining steps. The top floor felt colder than before. The long corridor stretched ahead of them like a pale grey tunnel. Only one window at the far end let in a faint, sickly glow of street lamp light. Poirot paused in front of the ceiling above the landing. He stared at it with such focus that even the air seemed to wait. Miss Marple watched him with gentle patience. "You believe there is something up there," she said. Poirot nodded without taking his eyes off the ceiling. The murderer needed height, enough height to create the right force, enough height to drop something or someone. This ceiling hides something. I feel it. Inspector Graves examined the plaster. "I see no opening," he said. "No hinge, no mark." Miss Marple took 3 small steps back. She tilted her head. Her eyes narrowed just a little. "There," she said. "Look at that line. No 2 corners of this corridor match exactly, except that one. It is too perfect. Perfection is often a sign of improvement, and improvement is often a sign of repair." Poirot clapped one hand softly. "Bravo, Miss Marple." He reached up with the handle of his walking stick and pressed the perfect corner. The plaster shifted. A faint panel moved inward with a soft pop. A cold, thin draught flowed out as if the ceiling itself had let out a breath. Graves stared. "A hidden loft," he said. Poirot nodded. "Yes, Inspector, and I think our murderer used this place. Let us see." Graves called for a ladder. A young officer brought it quickly. Poirot insisted on going first. Graves did not like this, but Poirot smiled in his calm, proud way. "Do not worry, Inspector," he said. "Murderers rarely stay in the places where they hide their tools. They prefer to watch us from somewhere else." He climbed into the loft. Miss Marple and Graves watched as his small, neat figure disappeared into the dark. Inside the loft, Poirot found a narrow, dusty passage. It smelled of old wood and old secrets. A small beam of light from a slit in the wall fell across the boards. Something shiny lay beside it. Poirot bent down. He held up a small metal ring, smooth, new, not dusty like the rest. "Very interesting," he whispered. "Someone placed this here just recently." He looked around again. Nearby lay a long, thin groove through the dust, as if something heavy had been pulled across the floor. Poirot smiled slowly. "Yes," he said softly, "I see it now." He climbed back down with the ring in his hand. Miss Marple waited with her quiet, calm smile. "Well?" she asked. Poirot held up the ring. "This is part of a pulley system," he said. "A simple one. A rope passes through this ring. A weight falls. A neck breaks. The rope is pulled back up. The ring comes loose. The murderer hides the hook in the stair step." Graves rubbed his forehead. "So the killer was above the room, not inside it." "Yes," said Poirot. "Above. The locked room is only locked by illusion." Miss Marple nodded slowly. "Very clever," she said, "but very cold. It takes a certain kind of person to plan such a thing. Someone patient, someone who knows the house, someone who enjoys a little drama." Poirot looked at her with new interest. "And who do you think that might be, Miss Marple?" Before she could answer, a scream tore through the house. A woman's scream filled with terror. It came from the drawing-room. Graves ran. Poirot followed. Miss Marple hurried behind them with surprising speed. When they reached the room, they stopped in shock. Mrs. Harrow stood by the fireplace with her hands on her mouth and her eyes wide with horror. She pointed at the mantel. There, in front of her, lay a new object, a folded note, and on top of it, a small, fresh drop of blood. Miss Marple whispered, "Someone has been here, someone bold, someone who wants to be seen." Poirot lifted the note with great care. He read aloud, "The game is not over. Trust no one." Inspector Graves stepped forward at once. His face turned even more hard. "Who put this here?" he said. Mrs. Harrow shook her head again and again. "I do not know," she cried. "I was alone in this room. I turned to pour some tea. I heard the slightest sound. When I looked back, the note was there." Poirot studied her. "You did not see anyone enter?" he asked. "No," she said. "I swear it." Miss Marple walked nearer to the mantel. She peered at the small drop of blood. It was bright and fresh. It had begun to dry at the edges. It looked like a small, cruel jewel. "That blood is not from our dead man," she said. "That blood is new." Graves nodded. "Our killer is in this house," he said. "He has walked among us. He may be hurt. I want every officer to look for someone with a cut, on the hand, on the arm, on the face, anywhere." He gave sharp orders. Men hurried out into the hall. Doors opened and closed upstairs. Voices called. Poirot opened the folded note. He read it again silently. His eyes narrowed. "The hand is the same," he said. "This note and the letters that brought us here share one writer. Our host enjoys his role. He thinks we are pieces on his board." Miss Marple gave a small, polite cough. "He or she," she said. Poirot smiled a little. "Quite right, Miss Marple. Wickedness is polite. It visits every sex." Mrs. Harrow sank into a chair. Her hands still shook. "I never wanted this," she said. "I only wanted to pay my debts." Miss Marple looked at her with gentle eyes. "My dear," she said, "when people say they never wanted trouble, it usually means they invited it in very carefully and then pretended to be surprised." Mrs. Harrow stared at her. "You think I planned this?" she whispered. "No," said Miss Marple. "I think you are part of a pattern. You may not yet know what picture it makes." Graves took the note from Poirot. "If the killer has cut himself, there may be drops of blood outside this room," he said. "We follow them. like crumbs left by a very foolish child. They searched the hall floor. At first they saw nothing. Then Miss Marple pointed. "There," she said, near the skirting board. A tiny dot of red lay beside the wall, then another a little farther on. Poirot smiled. "Our murderer is untidy," he said. "I like that. It gives us hope." The drops led them toward the back of the house, past the study, past the cupboard where the red scarf had been found, down a short passage that ended in a narrow door. Graves tried the handle. "Locked," he said. Poirot listened. "No sound," he said. "Yet someone was here not long ago." Miss Marple looked at the door with interest. "In my village," she said, "people hide their worst secrets in the smallest rooms, pantries, coal stores, linen cupboards. They feel safer when trouble smells of soap or bread." Graves called for a key. None was found. "We can take the door off the hinges," he said. Miss Marple smiled faintly. "Young Tom Finch once did that for poor Mrs. Finch," she said, when she locked herself in the pantry with the Christmas cakes. "Very effective." Graves nodded to a strong officer. "Off with it then," he said. The man set to work. In a few moments the door came free and they lifted it aside. The room inside was very small. No windows, only shelves and a low stool. A faint smell of coal and damp cloth filled the air. On the stool lay a handkerchief with a fresh stain of blood. Beside it sat a small bottle of perfume. The label showed pale flowers and the words, "Orange Blossom." Miss Marple stepped forward. "So, our lady guest has been here," she said. "She hurt herself, she cleaned the cut, she left in a hurry." Poirot picked up the small bottle. "Estelle Grey," he said. "She is near us. She cannot have vanished into the fog without passing one of the men at the door." Graves scowled. "Unless she never left," he said. They searched the little room very carefully. No body, no secret door, only shelves with old cloths and coal. Poirot set the perfume back on the stool. "She came here," he said. "She used this as a quiet room. Somewhere to think, somewhere to wait. She may even have watched us from a crack in the door." Miss Marple looked at the handkerchief. "Small hands," she said. "The fold is neat. A woman used to making small, careful things, not rich, not grand, but proud." Graves turned to Poirot and Miss Marple. "You two interest me," he said. "One sees ash and steps and scraps. The other sees hearts. Between you, I may yet keep my job." Miss Marple smiled. "Gossip is only the village form of detective work, Inspector," she said. "We collect bits of talk. We search for the truth inside them." An officer ran down the hall toward them. His face was flushed. "Sir," he said to Graves, "we have the name of the dead man." Graves straightened. "Well?" he said. The officer took a breath. His card gave a club address, sir. The Candlelight Club. "We telephoned. They say he is Sir Lionel Marsh. Very rich. Very fond of cards. Very fond of ladies. Very fond of secrets." Miss Marple gave a soft sigh. "A clubman," she said. "Then indeed there will be talk." Poirot seemed to grow even more alert. "Sir Lionel Marsh," he repeated. "I know the name. A scandal with investments. A court case avoided by a quiet payment. Also, a wife who lives in the country and a string of lady friends in the city." Graves looked grim. "So another man who lived on lies," he said. "That gives us many people with reason to hate him." Miss Marple tilted her head. "Mrs. Harrow fears shame," she said. "Her family has a past in Australia. Trunks in the box room tell the tale. Sir Lionel belongs to a club of gossip. And somewhere between them moves Estelle with her red scarf and orange scent." Poirot nodded. "And let us not forget our writer of letters," he said, "the one who knew our names, who admired our skills, and who wanted us here tonight." Graves rubbed his temples. "My men will bring Estelle Grey if she is within 10 streets of this house," he said. "We will also send a man to Sir Lionel House and to that club. There will be a line of people who wish to say ill of him." Miss Marple rose from where she had been perching on a low chair. "Inspector," she said gently, Do not forget, Mr. Finch, small men often know great secrets. They carry letters, they carry money, they carry stories, and sometimes they carry guilt for other people. Graves nodded. I will speak to him again, he said, this time without kindness. Poirot looked toward the stairs. While you question Mr. Finch, Inspector, he said, I would like to look once more at the locked room. Now that we know the name of our dead man, perhaps he will speak to us. Miss Marple gave a small, amused sound. The dead do not speak, Mr. Poirot, she said, but the way they lived talks very loudly in the room where they died. They walked back up the stairs together. The hollow step made its faint, strange note beneath their feet. It sounded now like a warning bell. Inside the locked room, the air felt thicker. Sir Lionel lay where they had left him. The marks on his neck looked darker. Poirot stood at the centre of the room. He slowly turned in a full circle. He looked at the clock, at the glass, at the scrap of scented paper, at the lip mark on the empty glass. Sir Lionel Marsh, he said softly, who were you drinking with? Who stood at this window? Who took your life from above? Miss Marple watched him. Do you think he invited death? She asked. Or did it come as a surprise? Poirot thought for a moment. A man who plays many games often forgets which table he sits at, he said. One night he wins, the next night he meets someone who does not like to lose. The door opened. An officer appeared. His face was pale. Sir, he said to Graves, we have news. We found Estelle Grey. Where? Asked Graves. The officer swallowed. She is outside, sir. He hesitated. In the river. For a moment no one spoke. The words hung in the air like cold smoke. Miss Marple closed her eyes. So she said softly, one dead in a locked room, one dead in the dark water. This is no longer a clever trick, Inspector. This is real evil. Poirot's eyes grew hard. Then he said, our enemy has raised the stakes. He looked at the window that faced the river. And I think he is still watching us. Chapter 5. The wind outside began to rise. It made a long, soft cry around the walls of Candlelight House. The fog pressed close against the windows like pale hands. The whole building felt as if it waited and listened. Inside, however, no one waited, no one rested. Men ran through the halls. Doors opened and shut. Someone shouted orders. Someone else shouted answers. And in the middle of all this noise, Miss Marple stood with her hands folded as if she were in a quiet church. Poirot stood beside her. His face looked firm and thoughtful. His eyes flashed with sharp light, as if new pieces of the puzzle turned in his mind. Inspector Graves walked in from the hall. His coat was wet at the shoulders. His boots left small, dark marks on the floor. He had just returned from the river bank. His voice was low and heavy. They pulled her from the water, he said. Estelle Grey. She is gone. Miss Marple sighed. The river hides many sins, Inspector, she said, and it often speaks the truth long before people do. Poirot looked at Graves. Do we know how she died? He asked. Graves shook his head. The doctor is examining her now, but I saw enough to know she did not fall in by mistake. Her face had a mark, a bruise. Someone held her. Someone pressed her head under the water. Someone made certain she never spoke again. Miss Marple nodded gently. Then she knew something, she said. Something someone feared. Poirot stepped away from them. He walked slowly around the room as if he were chasing a shadow. First Sir Lionel, he said, then Estelle. 2 deaths, 2 different methods, both quiet, both planned, both done by someone who knows the house and the river. He paused near the window. And both deaths connected to that strange group of letters. Someone called us here as witnesses, or as tools, or as victims. We must discover which. Inspector Graves spoke again. We questioned Mrs. Harrow. She swears she knows nothing of Estelle's death. She said Estelle begged her to rent this house for tonight. She said Estelle was afraid of someone, but she would not say who. Miss Marple gave a soft, thoughtful sound. That is because the someone is close, she said. Close in blood or close in shame. People only hide fear when the cause of fear is dear to them. Poirot looked at her. You think Estelle Grey feared a lover or a family member, he said. Miss Marple shook her head. Not love, she said. Something heavier. Something that ties people by habit, not by heart. A duty, an old link, something like family. Graves frowned. Estelle Grey and Mrs. Harrow are not family, he said. Miss Marple looked up at him with her sweet, mild expression. Are you quite sure of that, Inspector? Graves opened his mouth, then stopped. Poirot seemed struck by the idea. Yes, he said softly. Yes, of course. There was something odd in the way Mrs. Harrow spoke of shame. She said her family had secrets. She did not say whose secrets. Miss Marple nodded. And remember the trunk in the box room, she said. C. Harrow, Australia. Letters from a brother who writes very little. A room that feels full of stories. Graves rubbed the side of his nose. You think Estelle Grey was related to Mrs. Harrow? Miss Marple gave a tiny smile. Possibly, she said. The world is small, Inspector. People often hide in plain sight. Names change. People move. Families grow apart, then meet again by trouble. Poirot added. And Estelle left perfume. She left a red scarf. She liked attention. But she also hid the scarf in fear. When the red threads appeared on Mr. Finch's collar, she may have panicked. She may have run. Graves looked puzzled. Why would she fear Finch? Miss Marple spoke softly. Because she trusted him once, she said, and she realized she should not trust him any more. That discovery frightens people more than anything. Poirot rested his hand on the mantel. There is something else, Inspector, he said. Sir Lionel had a reputation for charming women. He made promises, he broke them, he caused ruin with a smile. Miss Marple's eyes narrowed just slightly. And Estelle was a proud woman, she said. A woman with pride will protect her story until she can no longer bear it. If Sir Lionel wronged her, she may have sought justice. If he wronged someone she loved, she may have planned something. Poirot nodded. But she did not kill him, he said, for she is now dead. Graves paced the room like a man chasing his own thoughts. 2 deaths, he said, one by a rope or a fall, one by drowning. Someone wanted Sir Lionel gone. Someone wanted Estelle silent. Someone smart enough to use the whole house as a stage. Miss Marple touched the note on the mantel again. Trust no one, she repeated. This is the warning of someone who wants fear to spread. Fear is a fine smoke. It fills every room and blinds every face. Poirot agreed. Yes, our killer loves chaos. But chaos hides order. Behind every game there is a plan. Graves asked. So what is the plan? Poirot thought. To bring us here, to trap someone, to silence someone else, to confuse us, and perhaps to watch us. Yes, our killer likes to watch. Miss Marple placed her hand gently on the mantel. I think our killer is not afraid of us at all, she said. He or she thinks they are cleverer than you, Mr. Poirot. Poirot raised his chin with a small, proud smile. Then they will soon be disappointed, Miss Marple. Before they could speak more, an officer hurried in. Sir, he said to Graves, we found something else. In the box room on the top floor. Graves' eyes sharpened. What did you find? The man held out a folded sheet of music. Old, yellow, carefully saved. Miss Marple looked at it. A song, she whispered. A love song, the kind young women keep for years. Poirot asked. Whose is it? The officer replied quickly. It has the name Estelle on the inside, and another name, Charles Harrow. Inspector Graves straightened like a man struck by lightning. Charles Harrow, he repeated. Mrs. Harrow, brother, the one who writes from Australia. Miss Marple spoke softly. Oh, he never wrote from Australia, Inspector. Poirot added. Because he never left England. Graves stared at the music sheet. Are you saying Charles Harrow and Estelle Grey were lovers? Miss Marple shook her head. Not lovers, she said. Blood. Brother and sister. Poirot nodded slowly. And Sir Lionel Marsh may have harmed one of them, or both. Graves' voice grew rough. Then where is Charles Harrow now? Miss Marple looked toward the stairs. In this house, she said, and he is not done yet. Poirot's eyes glimmered. Then we must hurry. The house groaned in the wind. Somewhere above them, a floorboard moved. Someone was walking. Someone who had waited long enough. The sound from above came again, a slow, firm tread, not the heavy rush of a frightened man, the careful step of someone who believed he had the right to walk there. Inspector Graves lifted his hand. "Stay here," he told the officers. "Poirot, Miss Marple, with me, please." They climbed the stairs once more. The hollow step gave its strange little note. It sounded to Miss Marple like a whisper that said, "Look again. Look better." At the top landing, the corridor stretched away. One lamp burned low. Shadows lay thick on the walls. The footsteps had stopped. Graves spoke in a quiet, hard voice. "Who is there? Show yourself." No answer came. Poirot looked at the doors. The guest bedroom stood open. The box-room door was half shut. The small, narrow room with the words "Trust no one" in the notebook lay dark. Miss Marple pointed toward the box-room. "There," she said softly. "People who carry old secrets always go back to their trunks in the end." Graves strode forward and pushed the door wide. Inside stood Harold Finch. He jumped like a guilty child caught near a jar of sweets. His pale hair was damp with sweat. His hands hung at his sides. His eyes flashed from one face to another. "What are you doing up here?" demanded Graves. Finch tried to smile and failed. "I heard noise, sir," he said quickly. "I wanted to help. I thought perhaps someone was hiding in the trunks." Miss Marple looked at the trunks. Their lids were all shut. Not one lock had been moved. "You did not open them," she said. Finch licked his lips. "I was just about to, madam." Poirot stepped closer. "You are afraid, Mr. Finch," he said, "but not of us, of someone else." Finch shook his head, yet his eyes begged someone to understand. Inspector Graves thrust a finger toward the nearest trunk, the one marked C. Harrow. "Open," that he ordered. Finch obeyed at once. He fumbled with the catch and lifted the lid. Inside lay neat layers of folded clothes. Beneath them lay papers tied with string. Miss Marple leaned forward. "Travel papers," she said, "or perhaps the play of travel." Graves pulled out the bundle. He untied the string. Inside were tickets and small booklets. "These are old rail tickets," he said, "all English. No ship papers, no long voyage. Charles Harrow never left this country." Poirot reached for a small packet at the bottom of the trunk. Inside lay a stiff photograph. 3 young people stood in a garden. A handsome young man with bright eyes, a dark-haired girl with a proud smile. And, beside them, younger, thinner, but with the same sharp face, Sir Lionel Marsh. Miss Marple gave a small breath. "So they knew each other," she said, "long ago, before the scandals, before the river, before this house." Graves stared hard at Finch. "You knew this," he said. "You knew Charles Harrow never went abroad." Finch hesitated. "I knew he came and went, sir," he answered. "Mrs. Harrow asked me not to talk. She said he had made mistakes. She said people judged too quickly." Miss Marple spoke in a gentle voice. "He went to prison, did he not, Mr. Finch, for some business with money, and Sir Lionel was somehow clean while Charles was not." Finch looked at her with open surprise. "How did you know, madam?" She smiled faintly. "It is the usual story," she said. "One man keeps his gloves clean, and another man carries the stain for him, and the family feels shame, and the women sew that shame into silence." Poirot tapped the photograph. "So Charles Harrow and Estelle Grey grew up near Sir Lionel," he said, "perhaps as friends, perhaps as something more. Then came scandal. Charles took the fall. Estelle watched. Mrs. Harrow carried the gossip on her back." Graves asked in a hard tone, "Where is Charles now? Is he in this house?" Finch swallowed. "He might be, sir." "Might be," repeated Graves. Finch finally broke. "He came here earlier today, sir," he cried. "He met Estelle. They argued. I did not hear the words, but I heard the tone. Old hurt, old anger, he said Sir Lionel would pay at last. He said the river remembers faces. Miss Marple closed her eyes for a moment. And then Sir Lionel died in the locked room, she said, and Estelle died in the river. Graves seized Finch by the arm. Why did you not tell me this before? Finch looked close to tears. Because Charles scares me, sir. He has eyes that see too much. And Mrs. Harrow begged me. She said if they knew he was here he would be blamed for everything. She said he had suffered enough. Poirot spoke softly. So she still protects him, even now, even tonight. Miss Marple gave a small sigh. Sisters always think they can mend their brothers' sins, she said. They sew patches on souls as if they were shirts. But a tear in character does not mend so easily. Graves released Finch with a rough shrug. If Charles Harrow is in this house, we will find him, he said. He turned to the officers behind him. Search every room again, every cupboard, every loft. Take care. He may be strong and desperate. The men moved out at once. The house woke again to the sound of heavy steps. Poirot looked once more into the trunk. He saw another small packet, this one tied with a faded blue ribbon. He took it and opened it. Inside were letters, written on fine paper in a careful woman hand. My dear Lionel, one began. Miss Marple read over his shoulder. Estelle wrote to him, she said. She loved him once. Poirot nodded. And he promised her things he never gave. He read a few more lines. His mouth grew thin. He used her trust, he said. He took her money and her hope. He gave nothing back. When the scandal came, he let Charles fall. And Estelle watched the name Marsh float above the mud while her own family name sank into it. Miss Marple's eyes shone sadly. No wonder she walked with her head so high, she said. Pride was all she had left. Graves listened with growing anger. So Sir Lionel ruined them, he said. That gives Charles Harrow a fine reason to kill him, and Estelle too if she tried to stop him. Poirot shook his head. Perhaps, he said, or perhaps someone used that story as a smokescreen. They left the box room and moved back along the corridor. The young officer who had gone to fetch the ladder earlier came running toward them. His face was very white. Sir, he cried to Graves, we found something in the loft. Graves stiffened. What now? The officer gulped air. A coat, sir, a man's coat, still warm, and near it a small bag with food, and this? He held out another folded paper. It carried the same bold hand as the letters and notes. Poirot took it quickly. He read aloud. Some men deserve to drown in air. Some women deserve to sleep in water. You three are the only ones who may deserve to know why. Miss Marple looked at the words with quiet anger. He makes poetry of cruelty, she said. That is always a bad sign. Graves asked. So he was just in the loft. Did no one see him leave? The officer shook his head. No, sir, but the coat was warm. He heard us below. He must have slipped away across the roof. There is a small window at the far end. It opens onto the slates. Poirot's eyes flashed. Then he is not far, he said. He cannot run far in this fog on slippery tiles. Graves sent more men to the roof and the street. Miss Marple touched the note again. Some men and some women, she repeated. He speaks as if he sits in judgment, as if he decides who deserves what. That is the voice of a person who thinks himself a little god. Yes, said Poirot, or of a man who has suffered much and turned his pain into pride. They went back down to the lower floor. Mrs. Harrow waited in the drawing-room. Her face was paler than before. Her eyes were ringed in shadow. When she saw Finch escorted by an officer, she gasped. Harold, what have you said? Finch would not look at her. I said the truth, Mrs. Harrow, he answered. They know about Charles now. They know he is here. She pressed her hands together. You have killed him, she whispered. Miss Marple stepped forward. No, my dear, she said kindly. If Charles is innocent, the truth will not kill him. Only lies do that. Mrs. Harrow shook her head in wild denial. You do not understand, she said. He is all I have left. Estelle went her own way. My husband is gone. My brother was ruined. Charles is broken already. If they take him now, he will never stand straight again." Poirot spoke with grave softness. "Madame," he said, "two people are dead tonight, Sir Lionel and Estelle. If Charles did this, he must answer for it. If he did not, we must find who did. Either way, truth is the only road." Mrs. Harrow stared at him. Tears shone in her eyes, yet did not fall. "He loved her, you know," she said suddenly. "He loved Estelle. He always did. Even after the scandal, even after prison, he would never harm her." Miss Marple nodded. "I believe that," she said. "A man may kill for a sister, he may kill for money, he may kill for shame, but to kill the woman he loves, that is rare. That requires a special coldness," Poirot said quietly. "And all we have seen of Charles suggests fire, not ice." Graves looked toward the window. "Then who held Estelle under the water?" he said. Miss Marple folded her hands again. "In my village," she said, "when a woman dies near a man she loves, the other woman in her story is always worth a long, long look." Poirot's eyes sharpened. "The other woman," he repeated. Miss Marple glanced at Mrs. Harrow. "The wife," she said softly, "the one who stays while the other one leaves. So somewhere outside this house there is yet another woman with reason to hate Sir Lionel Marsh. And perhaps reason to hate Estelle Grey as well." Chapter 6. The night grew heavier around Candlelight House. The fog pressed closer, as if it wished to enter every crack and whisper secrets in every ear. Inside the house the lamps flickered, and the walls seemed to lean in and listen. Inspector Graves stood in the drawing-room with his hands behind his back. His face looked carved from stone. Poirot stood near him with his neat posture and sharp eyes. Miss Marple sat calmly on a small chair as if she were attending a quiet tea rather than a night of murder. Mrs. Harrow remained by the window. She clutched the curtain in one hand. Her face was pale, and she seemed at war with herself. "We now know," said Graves, "that Charles Harrow had reason to kill Sir Lionel Marsh. We know he met Estelle today. We know he arrived in this house, but we do not know where he is." Miss Marple spoke gently. "Charles may hide," he said, "but not because he is guilty. People hide for shame and fear far more often than they hide for crime." Poirot nodded. "Yes, and I begin to feel something very strong. Our killer moves with pride, not shame, with vanity, not fear, with a taste for drama and a taste for judgment." Graves asked, "You think Charles Harrow is innocent?" Poirot answered softly, "I think he is just another pawn on the board, and our real player is someone else, someone who sent letters, someone who walked these halls, someone who knows the story of this family far too well." Mrs. Harrow gasped. "No, you cannot mean it. My family has already suffered enough." Miss Marple looked at her with soft eyes. "My dear," she said, "suffering sometimes grows its own root. Old wounds lead to new wounds. You cannot protect someone by hiding the truth. It grows too big to hide." Before Mrs. Harrow could reply, there came a sharp cry from upstairs, then the sound of running feet. The house echoed with noise. Inspector Graves rushed out. Poirot and Miss Marple followed him. Mrs. Harrow came after them with shaking steps. They reached the top landing. Two officers stood outside the small, narrow room where the notebook had been left, the room that held the words, "Trust no one." Graves pushed inside. A man sat on the floor with his back against the wall. His hands were bound behind him with his own belt. His face was bruised, his hair was wet with sweat, his eyes were wild and bright. Charles Harrow. He looked up at them with a strange mix of fury and despair. "So you have found me," he said. Inspector Graves crouched beside him. "Who did this to you?" he asked. Charles gave a sharp laugh. "Is that not clear, Inspector? The same person who killed Estelle? The same person who killed Lionel?" Miss Marple stepped closer. "Did you see him?" she asked. Charles stared at her. "Her," he said softly. Poirot straightened at once. "Her," he repeated. Charles nodded. "Yes, her." Miss Marple's eyes grew sharp. Who, Charles? Charles dropped his head for a moment as if the weight of his story threatened to crush him. Then he looked up again. My sister, he said. The hall fell into complete silence. Even the wind outside paused as if shocked. Mrs. Harrow cried out, Charles, no, do not say that. Charles spoke again. She killed Lionel. She killed Estelle. She planned it all. She said Lionel took everything from us. She said Estelle was weak. She said she would make them pay. Poirot stared at Mrs. Harrow with a look of deep sorrow. Madame, is this true? Mrs. Harrow stepped back. Her whole body trembled. No, she whispered. I did not kill anyone. I only wanted to save my family name. I only wanted to protect Charles. I only wanted to pay my debts. Poirot moved closer to her. But you wrote the letters, he said. Her eyes flew wide. No, I did not. Miss Marple looked at her quietly. My dear, that perfume in the cupboard, that scarf in the hall, that music in the box room, those were not the signs of innocence. Those were the signs of someone who wished to send messages, someone who wanted to frighten. Mrs. Harrow pressed her back to the wall. You do not understand, she said. Lionel ruined us. He ruined Charles. He took Estelle's heart and crushed it. He sent Charles to prison. He made a fool of me in front of all our friends. I had every reason to hate him, yes. But I did not kill him. I swear I did not. Poirot held up one finger. And reason is not proof, madame. Hate alone does not create murder. It only creates drama. And you enjoy drama. That much is clear. But drama is not equal to death. Charles spoke again. She told me to come tonight, he said. She said Lionel would face justice. She said Estelle would bring him. Miss Marple frowned. Estelle brought Lionel here tonight. Charles nodded. Yes, Lionel trusted her once. She could still call him. She sent him a message. She asked him to meet her at Candlelight House. She said she would give him documents to protect his reputation. But she meant to expose him. She meant to show the world what he did to us. Poirot nodded. So Lionel came, and someone killed him. But who? Charles squeezed his eyes shut. I thought it was Estelle. She had become strange, harder, angrier. She said the river speaks for the wronged. She said some men deserve to fall. But when I saw her body, when I saw she was gone, I knew she had been a target too. Inspector Graves said. Then who arranged this entire night? Charles whispered. Someone who knew our story. Someone who read our letters. Someone who heard our secrets. Someone who watched us. I do not know who. Miss Marple stepped closer. Charles, she said softly, did anyone else know the truth about you and Estelle and Lionel? Charles breathed hard. Only one, he said. Poirot's eyes shone with sudden fire. Who? Charles lifted his head with slow dread. Harold, he said. Harold Finch. Miss Marple gasped. Finch. Charles nodded. He listened at doors. He opened letters. He stole papers from trunks. He spied on Estelle. He followed me. He knows everything. He always pretended to be harmless, but he is not harmless. He is a snake, and he hates Lionel even more than we do. Poirot froze. Where is Finch now? Graves spun on his heel. He was here. He was with an officer. Poirot shook his head. No, his fear was too perfect, his tremble too neat. He hid a cut on his hand. He carried Estelle perfume. He had red threads on his collar. He was the one who placed the notes. He was the one who hid in the loft. He is the writer of the letters. He is the ghost in this house. Miss Marple whispered. And he is still here. At that moment a soft laugh drifted down the stairs. A cold, quiet, cruel laugh. Graves drew his gun. Poirot stiffened. Miss Marple held her breath. Finch's voice floated to them like smoke. So you finally understand, he said. His steps creaked above them. But you understand too late. The laugh drifted down again, thin and sharp. It did not sound like a brave laugh. It sounded like the laugh of a boy who had pulled a cruel trick, and thought he was clever. Inspector Graves moved toward the stairs with his gun in his hand. "Harold Finch," he called. "Stay where you are." Finch's voice came from above. "You have climbed these stairs all night, Inspector," he said. "You have opened my little hiding places. You have looked at my notes. I am almost proud. Almost." Poirot stepped beside Graves. "We go up together, Inspector," he said, "but slowly, like men who visit a snake." Miss Marple spoke from behind them. "Do be careful," she said. "Small snakes can be the worst. They do not know when to stop biting." Mrs. Harrow stood frozen by the wall. Charles still sat bound in the narrow room. An officer stayed beside him with clear orders not to move. Graves took the first step, Poirot the second. Miss Marple followed more slowly. Her hand brushed the rail. The hollow step gave its odd little note as they passed. At the top they saw Finch. He stood near the open panel that led to the loft. His hair was wild. His eyes shone. One hand was wrapped in a dirty cloth. He smiled. "Such brave company," he said. "The great Hercule Poirot, the famous Miss Marple, the wise Inspector of Scotland Yard, and you all ignored the little man who carried your coats." Poirot looked at him with pity rather than anger. "You did not need to be ignored, Mr. Finch," he said. "You chose it. You chose to listen in shadows rather than speak in daylight." Finch laughed again. "Daylight," he said. "Daylight is for people like Sir Lionel Marsh, for men with clubs and titles, for women like Estelle who dream of better lives and land in the mud. Men like me live in stairwells, in cupboards, in box rooms. We hear everything and we get nothing." Miss Marple shook her head. "That is not quite true," she said kindly. "You got power, the power of secrets, and you liked the taste too much." Finch's eyes flashed. "I deserved it," he cried. "I watched Lionel cheat a boy into prison. I watched Estelle beg for help. I watched Mrs. Harrow bow her head while people whispered. I saw how they all suffered. And I told myself I was different." Graves kept his gun steady. "Different?" he asked. Finch nodded. "Yes, I would not suffer in silence. I would make a story of it. I would build a grand night. I would bring Lionel to a house of shadows. I would call the greatest detectives. I would let them watch while justice walked." Poirot said quietly. "So you wrote the letters?" "Of course," said Finch. "I had read about you both, in the papers, in gossip. Poirot with his little grey cells, Miss Marple with her village eyes. I thought you would enjoy the puzzle. And if you solved it, so what? Lionel would still be dead." Miss Marple asked. "And Estelle, did you plan her death too?" For a moment Finch's face twisted. "Estelle was meant to be the star," he said. "She was supposed to draw Lionel close. She was supposed to help set the scene. I gave her the scarf. I gave her the words. I told her the river would remember her pain. She liked that idea too much." His voice dropped. "But then she lost her nerve. She saw the rope in the loft. She saw how the pulley would work. She saw Lionel fall. And she began to cry. She said it was wrong. She said I was mad. She said she would tell." Miss Marple whispered. "So you took her to the river?" Finch's eyes grew cold. "She walked with me. She trusted me. I told her we would run away. New names, new place. I held her neck. I told her it would all be over soon. And it was." Inspector Graves clenched his jaw. "You little devil," he said. Finch shrugged. "Do not judge me, Inspector. You serve the law. I served balance. Lionel crushed lives for sport. I only gave him what he had given." Poirot shook his head. "No, Mr. Finch. You did more. You turned hurt into a game. You sent notes with pretty words. You set traps with secret panels. You were not content to stop a wicked man. You wanted to enjoy the show." Miss Marple added softly. "And you killed Estelle. She was not wicked. She was wounded. You chose to drown not a villain but a broken heart. That is not justice. That is vanity." For a second, Finch's face showed something like doubt. Then it hardened again. "And what of Charles?" he said. "He came ready to kill. He said so. He looked at Lionel with murder in his eyes. Poirot answered, "He may have wished it, but wishing and doing are very different. You made sure he arrived too late. You had already dropped the rope. You had already broken Lionel's neck. You thought you could let Charles carry the blame again." Miss Marple nodded. Just as before, she said, "Once more the gentleman walks away and the small man pays. But this time the small man did not wish to pay, so he chose to become the judge, the jailer, and the hangman." Graves stepped forward. "This ends now, Finch. Put your hands up." Finch looked toward the loft opening. His eyes flicked back to them. "I do not think so," he said. He moved very fast, too fast for such a thin man. He slipped through the loft panel. Graves swore and ran after him. Poirot followed. Miss Marple came more slowly, but her eyes missed nothing. In the loft, the air felt icy. A small window stood open at the far end. Night and fog hovered just beyond it. Finch had one leg through the window. He clung to the frame. Below him the roof sloped sharply toward the riverside. Graves pointed his gun. "Come back inside, Finch. You cannot flee across those tiles." Finch laughed softly. "You do not know me, Inspector. I have walked more dangerous paths than this. I have walked between the words of men like Lionel. I have walked between the sobs of women like Estelle. This is nothing." Poirot spoke firmly. "Harold Finch, look at me." Finch turned his head. "You think you understand me, Poirot?" Poirot nodded. "Yes. You wanted to be large. You wanted to be the one people talk about. Tomorrow they will, but not as you dream. They will not say, 'Here is the man who brought justice.' They will say, 'Here is the man who twisted pain for his own pride.'" Miss Marple added in her gentle voice, "And they will remember Estelle more kindly than you. They will call her foolish. They will call her unlucky. They may even forgive her, but they will not forgive you." For the first time, Finch seemed shaken. "I did it for them," he said. "No," said Miss Marple. "You did it for yourself." The fog drifted in through the window. It touched his face like a cold hand. He looked down. The drop was deep. The river murmured somewhere beyond the roofs. Graves stepped closer. "If you slip, you will not drown like Estelle," he said. "You will only break, and it will be slow." Finch, teeth chattered. "I will not go back to small rooms," he whispered, "to laughter behind doors, to being the man who carries coats." Poirot spoke very softly. "Better a small room with life than a deep, dark river with nothing. Come inside, stand trial, tell the whole story. This time let truth be the thing people remember, not your little tricks." Miss Marple folded her hands. "You see, Harold," she said, "gossip always ends. Only facts remain." Finch closed his eyes. His fingers tightened on the frame. There was a long, long moment. Then with a sudden shudder he pulled his leg back inside. He dropped to his knees on the loft floor. "All right," he said. "Take me." Graves moved at once. He cuffed Finch's hands. His face showed no triumph, only tired relief. "It is over," he said. Poirot looked toward the open window. "Not quite," he answered. "We still must clear the innocent. We still must comfort the living. That is the part most people forget." They led Finch down through the hollow step and the narrow halls. Officers watched in stiff silence. Mrs. Harrow gave a small cry when she saw Finch in cuffs. "Harold," she whispered. Finch did not look at her. His bravado seemed to leak from him like air from a broken toy. Charles Harrow sat in his small room with his face in his hands. When Graves told him the truth, he gave a sound that was half laugh and half sob. "So it was the servant," he said, "the man we trusted with keys and letters." Miss Marple touched his arm gently. "It is always someone who stands very near," she said. "Near money, near hearts, near talk." Poirot spoke to Graves. "You will still need records from the club, from the old court file. But the heart of the case is here. Harold Finch planned the night. He set the rope. He killed Sir Lionel Marsh. He drowned Estelle Grey. He bound Charles to frame him if need be, and he left notes to tease us." Graves nodded. "And the letters that called you, And Miss Marple? Also his work, said Poirot. He wanted an audience. He wished us to admire his cleverness. Instead, we see only his emptiness. Miss Marple looked around the hall. This house will have talk for years, she said. People will whisper about the locked room, about the river, about the famous detectives, but in the end, it is only a sad story. The story of hurt people and one man who loved secrets too much. Later, when Finch had been taken away and the bodies removed, Candlelight House grew quiet at last. The fog began to thin. A weak, pale light from the coming dawn touched the windows. Poirot stood by the front door with his hat in his hand. Miss Marple stood beside him. Inspector Graves joined them. "I will not say it was a pleasure," said Graves, "but I will say I am glad you were here, both of you." Miss Marple smiled. "Murder is never a pleasure, Inspector," she said, "but it is always better shared." Poirot bowed slightly. "I agree. Even my little grey cells enjoy company." They stepped out into the thinning mist. Behind them, Candlelight House stood dark and still. It had seen enough drama for many years. Miss Marple drew her shawl closer. "You know, Mr. Poirot," she said, "people will make all sorts of stories about this night. They will say ghosts walked. They will say the house was cursed." Poirot smiled. "But we will know the truth," he said. "Yes," she answered. "It was not ghosts, only very human foolishness and very human pride." They walked away together as the first birds of morning began to sing. Candlelight House stood silent as the sun slowly rose. The fog drifted away and the night of fear became only a memory. Lives had been broken and truths uncovered, yet justice at last found its path. Poirot walked into the morning with calm pride. Miss Marple returned to her quiet village with new thoughts to tuck beside her knitting. Inspector Graves faced another long day of reports and secrets. But the shadows of this house would whisper for years, for where darkness gathers, curiosity soon follows, and mystery never truly sleeps. If you enjoy our stories, follow and like and subscribe Candlelight Mystery.